Hello and welcome to my channel. Um, it has been quite some time since my last reading. I think it's been about a month or so, which again, I did not intend for my readings to be so not few and far between, but I didn't expect to have so much time in between readings. And I've been thinking on it for a while, and considering that on this tarot journey of mine, I made some assumptions that it would go a certain way, and I'm finding that that is not the case, and I am comfortable with it because I am really learning and understanding the value of slowing down my life and having patience in this time that we're in, because so much of this time that we live in this reality, requires many people to sacrifice their time and their energy for things that they may or may not want to do. In my case, this is something I want to do, and this is not a sacrifice of my time by any stretch. However, it is true that in this world, we have a tendency to think that things need to happen quickly or within a certain time frame. And I am discovering that my spirit team, for one reason or another, want me to, at least for this current time, to move a little bit slower and to allow things to come into fruition between my readings, so that if I do a reading and, people see the readings and things like that, then there's some time to take a look at the reality around you and to see if these things are actually coming to pass that I'm talking about. And so, with that being said, as it's been a while since my last reading, I've gotten so many downloads, so many things that I could talk about, and I didn't really have a plan when I started this reading. I was sitting here thinking about various things, and I just decided I'm just going to do this reading, and as usual, as I usually do, see what comes out of it. And so we have just moved past July 4th and also the summer solstice, which I had intended to do some readings for the summer solstice because I was really thinking to get some energy reads as we moved into the summertime. So we're a little bit into the summer season now. It's a little bit past that. And so this is probably a better time, as it's now had some time to develop. Summer has had time to kind of develop into the shape it's taking on. So it's still a bit early in the summertime, and there is still quite a bit of summer to go. So there's still a great deal that can happen as we go through the rest of the summer. However, I have noticed that there have been many things going on in the reality, and so I am especially curious about what is happening for our collective at this time. So I am going to go ahead and start pulling cards. I've already shuffled, and let's pull 3 and see what it is that is going on for the collective at large, and also maybe just generally within the reality. I'd like to see what the spirit team has to say to us today, and I won't ask any questions. I don't really have anything specific that I want to look into. So let's just see where this goes. And I'm going to pull from the top here. The otter and cattail, peace in the reverse. Okay. The dragonfly and pansy, balance. And look at those beautiful colors coordinating. The porcupine and anemone. Anemone. Boundaries. Ooh. Okay. So, interestingly enough, as usually happens, we've got the dragonfly and pansy here in the middle, balance. And that was the most recent card I'd pulled for the short one card pulls that I usually do. And when I pulled that card, I had talked about, well, first of all, that card came out in the reverse in that pull, actually. And so that card in the reverse was referring to the collective having thrown something off balance here. And this card today is in the upright. So as I go through this reading, I'll see if I feel that this is still carrying the same energy from that last read. So I'll take a moment to sit with this and feel what is going on here in the collective energy. So with the otter and the cattail, peace in reverse. Already this is telling me that somebody's peace has been destroyed. That's the word that's coming to me. I don't know why. Somebody's peace has been destroyed. And with this dragonfly and pansy, the balance here being in the upright, I sense that in this case, what we're looking at here is a balancing of the scales here. When I say the balancing of the scales here, actually interesting, I didn't even think about that when I said it, the balancing of the scales, that just came out. But there you have it, the balancing of the scales referring to justice being done, karma coming to those who deserve it, judgment being passed on those who require it, right? When we talk about balancing the scales, what this usually means is that something has been out of balance. And in the case of this reality, we know that many things are out of balance. The environment is out of balance. People's health and mental state is out of balance. Justice is out of balance. So many things have been turned upside down in this reality and caused extreme imbalances to such a degree that it has caused widespread chaos, destruction, confusion, so forth and so on, right? And so going back to this peace card here, what this is telling me is that this situation in which somebody's peace has been destroyed is the correcting of all this imbalance that has been imposed upon us. I talk a lot about colonization because that is very much the source of all the imbalance that we are experiencing here. And with colonization has come a destruction of the peace of the natural environment, including the indigenous peoples, and all of these other innocent peoples who have been involved in colonization through enslavement, trafficking, various kinds of abuse, and things like that, right? So, what I'm seeing here with this peace being destroyed for somebody, we've talked about this in previous readings, so very easy to put together. I've said many, many times in the past that especially as this summer continues and goes on, there is going to be a great deal of difficulty and adverse situations going on for people. And so it seems to me that this has come to its maybe not full fruition, but it is certainly at a place where people are no longer under any illusions about certain things that may be happening in their reality. They may not be fully aware of the full context of things like that, but they are certainly aware that something is not right. In many people's lives, they are experiencing all kinds of things going on. I've seen, such as the earthquake in Venezuela. I think that is a very stark example of peace being destroyed for somebody, right? You have wildfires going on in various locations, serious storms going on in various locations. I've heard I've heard about things such as the CERN facility being turned off, which there's a media story behind that, but I have a strong sense that there is something much more, much deeper going on in the background, things that we are not being told, right? And so it seems to me that whether it is individuals or large-scale organizations, something is going on that is causing a disturbance of the peace, okay? People who previously perceived their lives to be peaceful and comfortable are now no longer able to pretend. They may be experiencing financial difficulties with the ongoing inflation and rising costs and things like that. They may be experiencing relationship issues, issues with their work, so many different things. I don't think I need to give many examples there. The point being that peace at this time is unreachable, right? And so you have here at the end, the final card, the porcupine and anemone, which is, hold on, let me look at that again, boundaries, right? And so, again, relating this back to colonization, we have been living in this reality in which the natural boundary of the Mother Earth plane has been violated. Therefore, this has resulted in violations of boundaries on every level. And we can relate this right back to slavery. What else do I need to say? That is the most extreme violation of a boundary that can be done, causing another to be enslaved, whether that being is a plant, an animal, a human, the air, another being, bacteria, whatever the case may be. Many boundaries have been crossed in this situation. And so I get a sense of two things here with this boundaries card being in reverse. Not only is it speaking on the boundary of this reality having been breached because of colonization. It is also telling me in this reading, with this balance here being in the center, in the upright, that these boundaries are now being put back into place, if you will. I'll say that the collective has spiritually risen to a place that we are no longer allowing others to overstep our boundaries. And so, with that, there was a way I wanted to say this too. It's not just that. It's also that these beings, these groups, these organizations, these evil corporations, these evil secret societies in the background who are engaging in child abuse and rituals and things like that going on. I'm getting a sense that these things are being cut off. And I said this just a moment ago about CERN being cut off, right? They had to cut it off, they claim, in order to do some maintenance or whatever the case may be. The story doesn't matter to me. And in a much larger sense, the fact of CERN possibly being cut off does not matter to me. What does matter is the message, the underlying energy that sends to me. Somebody's ability to cross boundaries in such an egregious fashion is being cut off. And so this is causing these groups, these individuals, these organizations, these corporations to feel a great deal of fear and anxiety, which is why this piece is also here in reverse. They are feeling as if they are no longer in control of the situation. And if you go back to that short reading that I was talking about where this dragonfly and pansy card appears, I said the very same thing. The collective has come to a place where whatever it is you're doing out there, collective, in your own individual realities or as groups, whether you're working with others, whether you're on your own, whatever it is that you've done here, you have caused something to be thrown off balance for these people. And they are experiencing a great deal of concern and consternation because they don't know what they're going to do now. They thought they had a great deal of control over this reality. And I'll continue using CERN as the example here because it is something that many people are familiar with. It is a large scientific organization. It's easy to find if you look it up, right? But CERN doesn't have to be the main example. It could be anything. The groups that are scientists that work on any kinds of research, biochemical warfare, especially the war scientists, as a matter of fact. You have to remember that in this reality, you have many scientists, so-called educated people who work in industries and fields that give them the illusion of control. How many of you know about HARP? Oh my goodness, I can't remember what the acronym stands for anymore, but HARP is the one that they are supposed to be responsible for controlling the weather, and I believe maybe chemtrails and things like that, right? So we're familiar with many of these so-called scientific organizations, these technological organizations, or these groups of people that feel that they have control of the earth plane because they have access to certain knowledge about technologies and how to manipulate things. Think of genetic modification, right? We all know about GMO foods and animal testing and labs and so forth and so on, right? These kinds of things, once again, are a egregious, extreme crossing of the natural boundary. There should be no group or individual in this reality, or perhaps any other reality, that have the ability to infiltrate, enslave, and do all kinds of wicked, nasty things in order to maintain their control and power, right? And so while these people were thinking they were in control, as it turns out, they've got to do some damage control. That's the only control that they're in, is damage control. And what the turning off of CERN tells me, if that story is to be believed and is in fact true, what it tells me is that in the background, these people who thought that they were controlling the situation with their high level technologies and their strange knowledge of how to manipulate atoms and protons and cells and things like that, they've got to turn that off, because they've run up against something that they were not expecting, or perhaps they did expect it, but it came in such a way at a time that they didn't expect. My point being is that it seems to me that it was a surprise. This was not something that was accounted for in all of their doings and dealings, okay? They didn't consider that at the end of the day, they are dealing with beings and energies and knowledge that is far beyond them. And so they are experiencing a situation in which now they are unable to cross boundaries. And not only that, they are about to find that their boundaries are going to be crossed in a very nasty way, okay? And so, relating this back to this balance card here, we've got a situation in which this reality has been essentially stolen from the indigenous stewards of the land, right? You have this situation where the planet is supposed to be one way, or a certain kind of way. There are certain creatures that are meant to be here, certain groups of people that are meant to be here, certain beings that are meant to be here. And if you understand anything about this reality, one thing you understand is that there is a such thing as extinction and genocide. And those two things, in this sense, are basically one and the same thing. Extinction means that something has been thrown off balance to such a degree that large groups of a species die off and become no more, basically, or become so rare that they cannot repopulate to their previous numbers. And the same goes with the genocide. When you have a group of people or beings or whatever the case may be deliberately manufacturing the loss of life on such a large scale, of course it results in the disappearance of groups of people, cultures, languages, ways of life, etc., right? And so this balance here being in the upright is telling me that these organizations and groups, all these wicked people who have been doing their nastiness on this planet, the scales are about to be balanced back to where they should be. Meaning that these people who have beforehand been experiencing basically what they think is peace, they believe they've been living happy, fulfilling lives, right? Crossing other people's boundaries by enslaving others, they have fulfilled themselves, okay? They need to cross boundaries in order to survive here. That is what slavery is. You have to cross the natural boundaries of a group of people in order for your group to survive, right? And so all of that appears here to be finished. And if that is the case, then these groups of people are going to be experiencing the same reality that they have been imposing on the collective and the environment. They are now going to be ill at ease. And what I mean by that is they will no longer be living in a peaceful illusion bubble, thinking that they are going to live forever and ever on this planet in the same fashion that they have been. Absolutely not. As this summer continues, we are going to see much, much more destruction, much, much more difficulties in terms of finances and people being able to feed themselves and so forth and so on. But not only that, okay, I talked about the scales being balanced, right? This talks about justice. This talks about the natural law, right? We have a court system that daily refuses to acknowledge its racism, its delusion, right, in thinking that it is giving justice to some people while keeping justice from others, right? And so we are going to start seeing people being held accountable in ways that they did not expect, okay? These people, and I'm talking about your police officers, your judges who sit in these courts, you've got attorneys, right? You've got all kinds of people who work in the government system, some of whom are not actively trying to be malicious, but they do exist in a system that is malicious, okay? And so those who think that they are innocent in this situation are about to find out that they are going to be some of the ones who are dealing with some of the worst judgment and being held accountable to the highest degree. Because even though they believe themselves to be innocent in this situation, the reality of the situation is you cannot have so-called mature adults existing in a situation that is clearly illegal, criminal, breaking the law, right? You have a situation where we have this thing like the Epstein files. That's an easy example to make of these people, right? You've got a document that is something like, I think I heard 3 million pages or something like that, that is discussing and implicating world leaders, royalty, members of cabinet, government leaders, presidents of corporations. These people are being accused of being involved in all kinds of nasty things involving children, sacrifice, trafficking, blood rituals. And these people are supposed to be the leaders of the world today. These people are people that work and live beside many of you, possibly, okay, in your towns, in your cities, and so forth and so on. These people are walking around freely, basically getting away with doing these things. And the people who are supposedly innocent work next to them on a regular basis and have not done a thing to remove these people, to bring justice to those who have been victimized, especially the children in this situation, right? So there is nobody in this situation who can claim to be innocent. And I do believe now that I'm looking at these colors, right, you see how soft and peaceful and almost angelic these colors are, right? And so that's giving me this sense of innocence, almost, a sense of peaceful naivete, okay? Ignorance is bliss, right? Oh, if I don't see certain things, then I don't have to believe it's happening. If it's not happening directly before my eyes, then maybe it's not actually happening in my area. Or even worse, the people who do see things happening before their very eyes and choose to say and do nothing. These people, in a certain sense, can almost be considered worse than the criminals, because at least the criminals are criminals, right? It's obvious to us that they're criminals. The criminals are more than happy to be criminals, and they're going to be criminaling until somebody stops them, right? And so as long as nobody is stopping the criminals, they're going to be out there doing exactly what it is that they do, okay? And so the people who think that they can claim innocence in this situation, living next to these people, working with these people, being in meetings, in constant contact with these people. I'm talking about people in the military who see things and who keep secrets for the government, even though they know it's wrong, right? Same goes for people who are on an individual level. You've got maybe neighbors who saw somebody do something wrong and they didn't say anything about it, right? Just to keep it simple here. So, we're going to be seeing these people getting dragged out of their little naive, fake, peaceful bubble, those hand-holding, kumbaya singing, oh, we can all come together, we're all in this together. That crowd, that's the crowd I'm talking about. Those people have been the worst because they have been standing in the way of justice, okay? There are those in this reality who would be more than happy to go and take these criminals out, okay? Anybody who's familiar with the Bible is familiar with the story of Jesus going in and flipping tables in the temples because he saw these people setting up shop and making money in the temples and doing all kinds of wickedness. And he said, you know what? Absolutely not on my watch. I'm going in and I'm getting rid of these people. And that's what he did, right? And so we have a reality in which there are those of us who would be more than happy to go flip some tables. But we can't go flip those tables because these fake innocent people have been standing in the way, okay? They will lie and protect these people at absolutely no benefit to themselves. And that's the worst part. They are benefiting absolutely not at all. The only benefit, if you can even call it that, is that they continue to get a paycheck. That is the benefit for them. And so if you threaten their paycheck, then you threaten the whole fabric of the reality for these people, okay? They live their lives for survival, and that is it. And if survival means keeping quiet and keeping their heads down and letting criminals be criminals just so they can get a paycheck and feed themselves the fake GMO food from the grocery store another day and pay for the fake mortgage that the bank owns because the houses are not even theirs another day, then they're going to be okay with that and they're going to go ahead and continue with the status quo. Okay? And so, to come back and bring it back around to what I was saying, we're about to start seeing people getting dragged out of their offices, getting dragged out of their homes, whether that be physically by a person or whether it just be circumstances. Again, a storm could come. Something more serious could come, and I'm not going to speculate here in this reading. This is already getting a bit long, so I'm going to be concluding soon. But the point is, you're going to start seeing a lot of people screaming and wondering and asking God or whoever it is they believe in, why is this happening to me? Why are you allowing this to happen to me? And the reason is because they are complicit in a reality that is clearly criminal and is obviously wrong. And up to this point, they've done absolutely nothing about it, okay? And so that's that group. And then you've got the actual criminal elements. These people who are the criminals who are happy to be criminals, okay? They don't give a crap. They're doing what they're doing and they like it, okay? And these are the people I've been talking about as far as your scientists, your so-called educated people. These people have knowledge far beyond anything I think I can comprehend, okay? I am not a astrophysicist. I am not somebody who is familiar with fusing together biochemicals in order to create bombs and things like that. These people have a level of knowledge of the science of doing certain things that is beyond my comprehension. And so to me, if you are equipped with that level of knowledge, but you choose to use that knowledge to cause chaos, to cause destruction, to cause loss, to cause enslavement, overstepping boundaries, if you have power and knowledge and the ability to basically have control of this reality by doing certain things, then you are a person who is criminally insane. That is a real term, okay? Criminally insane, all right? We've got plenty of other words. You've got psychopath, you've got sociopaths, you've got all kinds of different medical words that we could pull out here and describe what this criminal element is. But the point is that they are more than happy being criminals. Do you have some criminals that want to change? Sure, why not? But we're not talking about those people. I think I'm not even talking about the same level of criminality, okay? We're not talking petty criminals who go and steal some food because they're hungry. We're talking about people who have access to resources, access to knowledge, and choose to use that access to do despicable, disgusting, unthinkable things. Can you imagine having billions of dollars and setting yourself up on an island for the sole purpose of buying and selling children? I cannot. That is not my goal. If I had billions of dollars, that is absolutely not what I would want to do with it. So why is it that's what these groups of people want to do? Are you following me? Are you understanding what it is that I'm getting at here? Okay? So you have a criminal element that is doing what they're doing in full knowledge of what they're doing, okay? They're not ignorant. They're not stupid as far as we can tell, okay? You have a lot of people who would like to believe these people are stupid, but a stupid person can't shoot a rocket into space, okay? An unwise, insane person with the knowledge can shoot a rocket into space. And that's a very different kind of stupid, okay? That's a very special kind of stupid, all right? It takes a special kind of stupid to enslave people, okay? It takes a special kind of stupid to violate the environment, all right? So, while it may be true that they may be stupid on a certain kind of level, it's not the kind of stupid that comes with being illiterate or being uneducated, okay? I think at that point, it's a choice or there is something missing in the brain, in the spirit, right? And you can find that concept in various cultures. There are people who are missing something vital in their spirit, in their mind, in order to do the things that they do, okay? And so you're going to start seeing these people having their boundaries stepped on in ways that they never thought possible before, all right? Because these are the people who sit up in their mansions and still have butlers and servants and things like that, all right? You have to remember that these people still exist. These people still have a certain expectation from their reality, from their lives, okay? They expect to continue stepping on boundaries, crossing boundaries, violating others. And they're about to find out that they are just as capable of being violated. They were given a certain period of time for What reason? I'm not certain. I have not been given that information. But I do know that they have been given a time to carry out their nasty, wicked ways, okay? Maybe they were given that time just so that the creator could see what they were going to do. Just to see if I give them this time, what would they do with it? I can probably guess, and I'm speaking from the point of view of the creator or creators or the spirits or energies that are meant to be stewarding this plane. If I give these wicked creatures some time, what would happen? Exactly what might they do? Okay, they've had time. Now I can see exactly what they would do, what they've done, and their future plans. And you know what? It's time for it to be done. And so these people are now about to be experiencing all kinds of egregious situations going on. The peace that they thought they had before, the security that they thought they had before. Remember now, I'm talking about people with access, people with power, okay? People with money in a lot of senses. And so these people have been able to buy their security, right? And I mean that both literally and figuratively. These people actually literally have the ability to finance security guards, personal militias, weapons that I've seen middle class people with lockers of weapons in their homes, and they claim these things are for self-defense and for hunting. And I often think to myself, you know, I can understand wanting to defend your home, defend your family, be able to go out and hunt. But does it require a locker of semi-automatic weapons? I don't think so. And exactly what are you defending yourself from that you need lockers full of semi-automatic weapons, right? And these are just what you might call regular people, okay? So imagine what those who are even higher up on the hierarchical societal ladder have, okay? If regular people on my own block have lockers full of semi-automatic weapons, and these people, as I've said before, are able to finance their own private militias, then they are very much the kind of people who are purchasing what they consider to be security, right? They think they've bought peace. But even the idea of having to purchase something like that to protect yourself is absurd. Because if you think you need a private army in order to protect yourself, I think what you think you're defending yourself is much bigger than just some regular people on the streets, right? And I've said this in a previous reading, I kind of touched on it. If you own slaves and you fear that they're going to revolt on you, then obviously you don't have the kind of control you thought you had or you think you have. Why should your slaves be revolting if you have all this control? Why should you fear your slaves coming up and doing some act for you to lose your life or to lose your property if you have so much control? You see what I mean? If they have control, what do they need to protect themselves from, right? And so they're about to find out what it is they need to protect themselves from. And in some cases, it's going to be other people. In some cases, it's going to be nature. In some cases, it's going to be things they can't even describe and they don't even know what it is, right? And so I think this is a good place to conclude this. I really did not intend for this reading to get quite this long, but I think that it lays out very well all the things that we've discussed previously, and it's pointing to exactly what we should expect based on those readings. These people are going to be experiencing complete and utter destruction of the peace, disturbance of the peace, okay? Disturbing situations in their lives. They are going to be disturbed on multiple levels. It's going to be a surprise even to us, the collective, who have been watching in the background and paying attention. And we knew this was coming because the prophecies told us so, our ancestors told us so, the signs told us so. And it's just very obvious that a people who continue to do things and think they're going to get away with it are eventually going to come up against a situation that is going to put them in a really bad place. Eventually, you're going to find out that there is something a lot bigger than you in this reality. And I think that they are currently finding that out. And as we continue, I see here with all this peaceful, lovely energy too, the collective here is completely in balance, okay? The collective here, by throwing off the negative energies, okay, by disbalancing all the negative entities, all the spiritual warfare, okay, by dealing with that, by growing and learning and becoming wise in this reality, we have found ourselves very balanced spiritually, mentally, financially even. And though it may be coming in slow for some people, I said financially, and I know we are not all in the place that we want to be necessarily financially, but there's a reason for that, and there's no need to worry about that, okay? And I think my collective understands that. We have nothing to be concerned about here, okay? While these people's lives are getting turned upside down and while they're experiencing their boundaries getting crossed for a change, and while they're experiencing all the lack of peace and the loss of sleep and the concern and the, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We're very centered here, okay? We are standing in our own power here. As all this goes on around us, we have been completely unconcerned, okay? We have been at home, relaxing, staying out of the way, and letting the consequences fall where they may for these people. And that's all we're going to continue doing, okay? And so, with that being said, I think this is a great place to go ahead and end it. And so, I will see you in my next reading. Bye.